Hello, everyone, and welcome to day 84 of my 100-day journey. It was such a gorgeous day. Today, I wanted to go paint outside. So I brought my wax pastels and I went ahead and used the watercolor block that I had used in my first few days. I took some watercolor that I had left over in a palette from a previous painting. In fact, it was from the watercolor section in the series. And it's some Schmincke Galaxy super granulating colors. So it was just whatever was in the palette. And I just added some to the background because I knew that some of it might show through. The irony was some of it still showed through, but you couldn't really see the color. So anyway, that's one of the things that I'm kind of struggling with these wax pastels is building up enough layers so that you don't see the background. So that was really what I wanted to focus on today, was really pushing the layering to see how far I could go. And I'm sitting as I'm working, so I apologize. I'm holding it up so I can see it, but it's not such a great angle for you all to see on the camera there, so sorry about that. But when I was looking down, the Galaxy set of Schmincke granulating colors is like a blue and a brown and a purple, a couple of shades of like a mauve. And so I picked 3 of those colors in the background. I picked the blue, I picked the brown, and I picked the mauve color. And so when I was looking at my set of wax pastels, I immediately went to the purples and the mauves. So that's what I thought I would start with. And again, I kind of in my head, I'm thinking, let me see what I can do to really push the layering. So I'd been working on the Mitant velvet paper, and you can really layer on there. I usually don't do very many because the pigment just sits and it looks really vibrant. But I have been able to see the paper underneath. And I don't love it. Like, I really, really love texture. But maybe it's just the color. It just looks like people have some sort of skin disease. So I don't really enjoy it. So I wanted to see if I go back to the watercolor paper, if I could push it and see what happens. I can always go back to the velvet paper again and continue to push the layering on that as well. There's absolutely no reason why I couldn't do that. So I'm just going through and building up shadows first. At first I thought I'm going to do the whole thing in kind of these pinks and mauves. I've got the light coming on from the right-hand side of the painting, so the left-hand side of the painting is the side that will be more in shadow. So I've got more of the purples and the blues as the highlight there. I did try and rub with my color shaper to see how much I could really get into and blend. And as I add and build up those layers, there's a sweet spot with it. Sometimes it's like too much pigment and the blend kind of gets messy. So you'll see that here coming up in a little bit. But I've got some purple layered with some of that magenta color, some of that mauve that I did my underpainting in. And then I've got mostly the mauve on the light hand side of her face, or the light side of her face, with a little bit of bismuth white. So bismuth white is a warm white. It's not a stark white, and I really like that for blending. So just building up, I'm layering, I'm continuing to layer back and forth and back and forth. So here I'm taking the blue over what was there, and looking at it back in the video, I actually kind of wish I had left it like that. I do come in and layer back the purple and back the magenta, but looking at it here, I really do like how it looks with the blue on top. So these are all just great experiments, just practicing with layering. You know, I believe you can use some type of solvent, maybe a solvent that's meant for pencils. I think you can use that with these and blend them a little bit more, turn them into liquid and blend them on the surface. But that's not usually something I do. I don't do it with oil pastel either. I know you can use mineral spirits with them, and I don't. I like the texture. So, and for these in particular, I don't usually work with colored pencil in that way. So I don't have any of that. I guess I could try some solvent, but again, I'm not super worried about it. And on watercolor paper, I probably wouldn't do that anyway. If I were going to use a mineral spirit, I'd probably make sure I was working on oil paper, just that it doesn't degrade the paper in any way or bleed through to the other side. So I'm adding in her hair. I kind of saw the shape of her hair in the underpainting, and I just went to town with it. So the darkest dark that I'm using is that sepia color that I've really been enjoying in this set. And then I've just added some of that dark green that I've used in her eye. I've added in some of the magenta and some of the purple and just put a bunch of colors in her hair to harmonize it. So I'm just building up the shadows, building up some of those darks, seeing what happens as I layer and continue to layer. I'm kind of using that mid-tone purple color as a blending color on that shadow side of her face. Using that blue color as the highlight on that side. And I'm just playing around to see when I'm blending what happens if I make circular marks versus straight marks. What if I use the flat side versus the other side and I push harder? So I'm just really experimenting. And I decided to add more warmth to the light side of her face. So I brought out that orange. That orange is gorgeous. I used it yesterday as well. I just think it's really beautiful. So I've layered that in to give a little bit of warmth. And then that magenta on her lips. That orange and magenta color combo is just gorgeous. So kind of working, going from one side of her face to the other. It's funny, I don't have to let anything dry, but I'm sort of built a habit around doing that, where I just sort of naturally let things sit and then move to another part. It also kind of helps me from overworking things too much. Doesn't always prevent me from doing it, but it helps sometimes to give me a little bit of space to look at something again later. So using that color shaper to blend out some of that pigment. Then I'm like, well, let's put some orange in there where the light might be hitting her hair. And blending it in. There's a lot of that background paper that's showing. And I actually spend quite a bit of time trying to blend with the color shaper and get rid of the paper that you can see underneath. I end up getting bored doing it, to be honest, and so I stopped and was kind of like, okay, I'm going to be done. I got bored doing it, but adding a little bit more shadow and depth to that one eye. And this is where I had so much pigment built up there that as I was using that color shaper to blend, it just started to blend away. Like there wasn't enough tooth there for it to stick to. And I added a little bit of that dark green in there to kind of bump up that contrast, especially in the corner of her eye. And it just didn't want to stick when I started blending it. So that's probably a place where I had too much pigment. So just putting a little bit of interest there with some strands of hair. I'm giving her some nostrils, bringing in a little bit more of that blue. That just really made a big difference, bringing that blue into her nose. Kind of gives her a glow on that side, which is really cool. And I'm using the orange on the light side of her face to show where the light is. Just kind of messing around with the shadows. Getting my darks dark and my lights light. Her eyes aren't quite lined up perfectly. I thought about giving her some jewelry. I kind of just did this sort of neutral shape down at the bottom to indicate some sort of clothing. But again, I use the color shaper off camera to try and blend as much of that background under paper away, kind of fill in that tooth. And I got bored, and so I stopped. The highlight on her forehead could move a little bit. I kind of lost her center line a little bit in there. And I didn't end up doing anything for the background around her head. I just kind of left it. I kind of liked what was there with the watercolor. I thought it was a good contrast. And the parts around her face that are a little bit fuzzy, I kind of like that. I kind of like doing that when I'm painting with oil and things like that as well. So there's day 84. If it's gorgeous where you are, I hope you have an opportunity to be outside in the sunshine. And thank you for joining me. I hope you're doing well. Take care of you, and I'll see you in the next one. Thanks. Bye.